The Argonian Account, Book 1, by Wahin Jart. In a minor but respectable plaza in the Imperial City sat, or perhaps lounged, Lord Van Eyck's building commission. It was unimaginative, austere building, not noted so much for its aesthetic or its architectural design as for its prestigious length. If any critics wondered why such an unornamented, extended erection held such a fascination for Lord Van Eyck, they kept it to themselves. In the 398th year of the Third Era, Decumus Scotti was senior clerk at the commission. It had been a few months since the shy middle-aged man had brought Lord Van Eyck the most lucrative of all contracts, granting the commission to the exclusive right to rebuild the roads of Valenwood, which had been destroyed in the 5-Year War. For this he had become the darling of the managers and the clerks, spending his days recounting his adventures, more or less faithfully, although he did omit the ending of the tale, since many of them had partaken in the celebratory Winthrop roast provided by the Celenstry, informing one's listeners that they'd gorged on human flesh improves very few stories of any good taste. Scotty was neither particularly ambitious nor hard-working, so he did not mind that Lord Van Eyck had not given him anything to actually do. Whenever the squat little gnomish man would happen upon the Decumus Scotti in the offices, Lord Van Eyck would always say, "You're a credit to the commission. Keep up the good work." In the beginning, Scotty had worried that he was supposed to be doing something, but as the months went on, he merely replied, "Thank you, I will." There was, on the other hand, the future to consider. He was not a young man, and although he was receiving a respectable salary for someone not doing actual work, Scotty considered that soon he might have to retire and not get paid for not doing work. It would be nice, he decided, if Lord Van Eyck, out of gratitude for the millions of gold the Valenwood contract was generating, might deign to make Scotty a partner, or at least give him a small percentage of the bounty. Ikamascati was no good at asking for things like that, which was one of the reasons why, previous to his signal successes in Valenwood as senior clerk for Lord Atreus, he was a lousy agent. He had just about made up his mind to say something to Lord Vanek when his lordship unexpectedly pushed things along. "You're a credit to the commission," the waddling little thing said, and then paused. "Do you have a moment free on your schedule?" Scotty nodded eagerly and followed his lordship to the hideously decorated and very enviable hectare of office space. "Zenithar blesses us for your presence at the commission," the little fellow squeaked grandly. "I don't know whether or not you know this, but we were having a bad time before you came along. We had impressive projects for certain, but they were not successful in the Black Marsh, for example. For years we've been trying to improve the roads and other routes of travel for commerce. I put my best man, Lysis Tejo, on it, but every year, despite staggering investments of time and money, the trade along those routes only gets slower and slower. Now we have your very clean, very profitable Valenwood contract to boost the commission's profits. I think it's time you were rewarded." Scotty grinned, a great grin of modesty and subtle avarice. "I want you to take over the Black Marsh account from Lysis Tejo." Scotty shook as if awaking from a pleasant dream to a hideous reality. "My lord, I couldn't." "Nonsense, Church Finette. Don't worry about Tejo. He'll be happy to retire on the money I give him, particularly as soul-wrenchingly difficult as this Black Marsh business has been. Just your sort of challenge, my dear Decumus." Scotty could not utter a sound, though his mouth feebly informed the word "no," as Lord Vanek brought out the box of documentation on the Black Marsh. "You're a fast reader," Lord Vanek guessed. "You can read it all en route to the Black Marsh, of course." Tiny fellow giggled. "You are a funny chap. Where else would you think you'd go to learn about the work that's being done and how to improve it?" The next morning, the stack of documentation hardly touched, Nikuma Scotty began his journey southeast to the Black Marsh. Lord Vanek had hired an able-bodied guard, a rather taciturn red guard named Malik, to protect his best agent. They rode along the Nibbin and then southeast along Silverfish, continuing on into the wilds of Cyrodiil, where the river tributaries had no names and the very vegetation seemed to come from another world than the nice civilized gardens of the northern imperial province. Scotty's horse was tied to Malik, so the clerk was able to read. It made it difficult to pay attention to the path they were taking, but Scotty knew he needed at least a cursory familiarity with the commission's business dealings in Black Marsh. It was a huge box of paperwork going back 40 years, when the commission had first been given several million gold by a wealthy trader, Lord Zelicus Pinos Ravina, to improve the conditions of the road from Gideon to Cyrodiil. At that time, it took 3 weeks, a preposterously long time for the rice and root he was importing to arrive. At Frotten, in the imperial province, Pinos Ravina was long dead, but many other investors over the decades, including Pelagius III himself, had hired commission to build the road, drain swamps, construct bridges, devise anti-smuggling systems, hire mercenaries, and in short, do everything that the greatest empire in history knew would work to aid trade with the Black Marsh. According to the latest figures, the result of this was that it took 2.5 months for goods, now thoroughly rotten, to arrive. Scotty found that when he looked up after concentrating on what he was reading, the landscape had always changed, always dramatically, always for the worse. "This is Blackwood, sir," said Malik to Scotty's unspoken question. It was dark and woodsy, so Dekuma Scotty thought that it was a very appropriate name. The question he longed to ask, which in due course he did, was, "What's that terrible smell?" "Slough Point, sir," Malik replied as they turned the next bend, where umbrageous tunnel of tangled tree and vine opened to a clearing. There squatted a cluster of formal buildings in the dreary imperial design. favored by Lord Venek's commission, and every emperor since Tiber, together with the stench so eye-blindingly, stomach-wrenchingly awful that Scotty wondered suddenly if it were deadly poisonous. The swarms of blood-colored, sand-grain-sized insects obscuring the air did not improve the view. Scotty and Malek batted at the buzzing clouds as they rode their horses towards the largest of the buildings, which on approach revealed itself to be perched at the edge of a thick black river. From its size and serious aspect, Scotty guessed it to be the Census and Excise office for the wide, white bridge that stretched across the burbling dark water to the reeds on the other side. It was a very nice, bright, sturdy-looking bridge, built, Scotty knew, by his commission. A poxy, irritable official opened the door quickly on Scotty's first knock. Come in, quickly. Don't let the flesh flies in. Flesh flies? Takuma Scotty trembled. You mean they eat human flesh? If you're not fool enough to stand around and let them, the soldier said, rolling his eyes, for he had half an ear, and Scotty, looking around at the other soldiers of the fort, noted they were all well chewed. One of them had no nose at all to speak of. Now, what's your business? Scotty told them and added that if they stood outside the fortress instead of the inside, they might catch more smugglers. You better be more concerned with getting across that bridge, the soldier sneered. Tide's coming up, and if you don't get a move on, you won't get to Black Marsh for 4 days. That was absurd. A bridge swamped by a rising tide on the river? Only the look in the soldier's eyes told Scotty he wasn't joking. Upon stepping out of the fort, he saw that horses, evidently tired of being tortured by the flesh flies, had ripped free of their restraints and were bounding off into the woods. The oily water of the river was already lapping on the planks, oozing between the crevices. Scotty reflected that perhaps he'd be more willing to endure a wait for 4 days before going to Black Marsh. But Malik was already running across. Scotty followed him, wheezing. He was not in excellent shape and never had been. The box of commissioned materials was heavy. Halfway across, he paused to catch his breath, then discovered he could not move. His feet were stuck. The black mud that ran through the river was a thick, gluey paste. And having washed over the plank that Scotty was on, it held his feet fast. Panic seized him. Scotty looked up from his trap and saw Malik leaping from the plank and the plank ahead of him, closing fast on the reeds on the other side. Help! Scotty cried. I'm stuck! Malik did not even turn around, but kept jumping. I know, sir. You need to lose weight. Takuma Scotty knew he was a few pounds over, and had meant to start eating less and exercising more, but embarking on a diet hardly seemed to promise timely aid to his current predicament. No diet on Nirn would have helped him just then. However, on reflection, Scotty realized that the Red Guard intended that he drop the box of documents, for Malik was no longer carrying any of the essential supplies he had with him previously. With a sigh, Scotty threw the box of commission notes into the glop and felt the plank under him rise a quarter of an inch, just enough to free him from the mud's clutches. With an agility born from extreme fear, Scotty began leaping after Malik, dropping onto every third plank and springing him up, for the river gripped him. In 46 leaps, Takuma Scotty crashed through the reeds into the solid ground behind Malik and found himself in Black Marsh. He could hear behind him a slurping sound as the bridge and its container of important and official records of commission affairs was consumed by the rising flood in dark filth, never to be seen again.